guys, my name is Sandra and today we're going to do a stitch and make session learning how to do a cushion with a concealed zip. So these cushions I made for downstairs in the cafe. Today we're going to use a fabric which I thought was a little bit more summery and this will be an ideal cushion for the garden. So we'll go ahead and we'll make the pattern first, we'll cut and then we'll make. So we're going to make the cushion for an 18-inch cushion. So when we have an 18-inch cushion, it roughly measures 46 centimetres. So we've got 46 centimetres by 46. And then we need a seam allowance all the way around. So we're going to have a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance all the way around. So that would be 1.5 there, 1.5 all the way around here. So the actual cut needs to be 49 by 49 centimetres. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this right angle because this is straight. So we're going to do a right angle and we're going to measure in 49. So that's 30, 49 like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a few little marks where I need to line things up. And then down here we also need 49. So this is 30, 49 is just here. Okay. And then you may want to make yourself a set square if you've got a set square and just line that set square up with the edge so you know that you're coming down nice and neat like that. Okay, we're just going to measure down at a couple of increments here. 49, 49. Okay, we also need a notch in the middle to tell us the direction of fabric, so we kind of put the two notches together to represent the top. So half of 49 is 24.5. So at 24.5, we're just going to make a little notch. Now the notches need to be about 0.5 of a centimetre in width and depth. So we'll put a little inverted notch there. And then we need a grain line. So we need to put the pattern to the material on the grain line, on the straight grain. So I'll explain that if you are not sure. So what we need to do is we need to put a double-ended arrow, I don't know, let's say 15 centimetres in. And we'll do a grain line. I'm using newsprint today. We tend to use, I try to buy in bulk and tend to use in my sewing classes, but you can just use newspaper, whatever you have really, just to create this pattern. So paper, scissors, put this out. We'll just check if it's square by doing a very big triangle and just making sure that it comes together and it's square, which it is. So that's our pattern done, and now we're going to place this on the fabric. So I'll just put that to one side. We now look at the fabric and we look for a selvage edge. This is the selvage edge here. So I put the two selvage edges together. Hopefully I've got enough of this fabric. I've been using it for different things. So the two selvage edges are coming together. You don't have to if it's a really wide fabric. You can just take however much you need, but just make sure that this panel here is parallel and it's not like this. So I'm looking at the pattern repeat, which I can see is here. So I would make sure that I line up with the pattern repeat, which is here. Just move this over. Okay. And then if we just go back to our piece of paper, I just wanted to say to you that this is the roll of fabric, like this. And down the roll of fabric, when it comes off the loom, at either side is your selvage edge. Okay, so this is your selvage edge. Now, all the yarns going down are called warp yarns, and these are straight. And the weft yarns, which go from left to right, sometimes can just be a little bit off. So you just need to make sure that your pattern, the straight grain, is with the warp of the fabric. You know, so we're matching the grain line parallel to the selvage edge. And that means that our material will be straight. Otherwise, we could get a little bit of twisting. So we'll get our pattern. So we try and get into the habit of correct sides inside. And that's because, not necessarily for this one, but if we were going on to pattern cutting, sometimes we need to chalk on the incorrect side. So we need to just make sure that we have right sides inside. Okay, and I'm just going to come over here. I might use this excess fabric here to make purses or something. So I just want to make sure that the selvage edge, that I've got the pattern. And we're looking for a parallel line, so we're not placing it on like this, and neither are we placing the grain line to the weft. We're always placing it to the warp. So we'll go ahead and do that and just put some pins in. Take the least amount of fabric that you can, but you probably need a couple of centimetres all the way around just to give you some room to cut. Now today we're using a concealed zip, and we're just going to use a zipper foot for that concealed zip, because the zipper feet come as standard on the machines. So we're just going to do that. You can get actual zipper feet, which you could even get closer to the material, but the zipper foot I always use, even in my own making, and it's good enough. But if you wanted to try out a zipper foot as well as, a concealed zipper foot as well as, then you can source that. So the sharpest bit of the blade is in the middle, and we want to keep the material as much on the table as we possibly can. If you've got a rotary cutter, you may want to use a rotary cutter for this. I always use scissors. I think it's just what you're used to. but I know some people are big fans of using the rotary cutter. So you don't want to be going too much out of cutting next to the pattern, but just do your best. Okay, let's move that out of the way. Cut down here. It's quite tough fabric, this actually. So our first job is to zigzag around the two pieces of material, and that's so it doesn't fray. So it's just a functional stitch. It doesn't, hopefully you're never going to see this stitch, but it does need to be on the edge. If it's not on the edge, sometimes it interferes with the seam allowance. So we're going to go ahead and go on to C, which is zigzag stitching. The length of the stitch is 2.5, the width of the stitch is 2.5, and we're going to sew on the very edge. Ideally without coming off the edge. We're going to start anywhere on our material. It doesn't matter if you sew the correct side or the incorrect side, and we're just going to meet it back. So we're not going to do a back stitch, we're just going to meet it back. When we get to the corner, so we have control over the sewing, we're going to hand stitch into the corner. So you use your wheel, hand stitch into the corner, needle is in the fabric, you lift up your foot, you swirl round and you back down. Go straight over the notch, so the gap, just sew over. And you're meeting the zigzagging at the beginning. If needle is in, lift up. If it's stuck, that means it hasn't done a full stitch, so you wiggle the wheel and it becomes unstuck. So I don't know if we can get a close-up on this, but this is where the zigzag needs to be. So we're going to do the zigzag, the next one, and then it's time for the zip. Okay, once we have zigzagged all of the edges, now what we need to do is insert the zip. So we have a concealed zip. Now the concealed zip, where you've got the puller, which is the correct side, you don't see any of the teeth. If you flip over, then you do see the teeth. So not to be confused if you go out and buy yourself a concealed zip. Also, the 18-inch actually measures 19 from end to end. So the 18 is from puller to stopper, and then you've got another inch of excess material. So, correct side of fabric, we're going to put the zip in the bottom, so although it's concealed, we still ideally want the zip to be in the bottom. I've got my notch to tell me that that is the direction of the fabric. So I put right side of zipper to right side of fabric. And edge to edge, like this. And we're sewing one side of the fabric tape, the zipper tape. We're sewing one side of the zipper tape, and it's the one nearest the edge. So we'll pin first. So we're pin tacking sewing. So we're pin first. Just make sure that you can see a little bit of the underneath fabric. And then we're going to get our sewing needle for tacking. We've got a needle here, a different colour tacking thread, so this can come out eventually. Not in the end of the long one, and then you're just going to tack. So tacking is just a temporary hold, and we're going to we're going to do a running stitch, and we're going to take a 2 centimetre, roughly 2 centimetre gap. Some people tack, and it's too wide, and it doesn't hold the zip. So fairly close tacking stitches of 2 centimetre. Got the smallest needle, it's making the job a little bit harder. And then when we get to the end, we need to tack right to the end and do a knot. So a knot is just, you find the hangman, you go through the hangman, and you knot off. Tend to have a little bit of a rag on my machines, just so everything doesn't go down the grooves in the table. Now what we need to do is to put a zipper foot on the machine. So you might have to look at your manual to see how to change your zipper foot to a zipper foot. Mine is just, you have a sleigh shape here at the back, and you move the sleigh shape towards your face, and the normal 2-prong foot comes off, and you're replacing that with a zipper foot. So this is the zipper foot. There is two types. This one here is at the left edge, and this came as standard with all the sewing machines. I flipped when they've been lost. I flipped onto a kind of a 1-prong foot with the prong in the middle rather than at the left, and that's so I can use both sides of the foot. So I'm going to go ahead and use the middle prong. I'll just put these in this tray, and I'm just going to clip on the foot as is, and you need to move your machine back to straight stitch, and that's really important because if it's on a zigzag stitch it will break the needle. So for sewing, for machine sewing, you need to have the zip down. Now there's lots of different ways to do this. It's not necessarily that my way is correct, it's just one of the ways and how I've been taught, and how I teach all of the classes. So I'm looking for the bulk of the fabric not to be in here, but to be outside on the left side. So I'm going to move this machine towards my face. I want the bulk of the fabric at the left-hand side. I have my gap also at the left-hand side. And I'm going to start with the zip a little bit closed. Now you're never going to see the first 6 centimeters and the last 6 centimeters of the zip. It's going to be closed in, 6 to 8 centimeters. It's going to be closed in. So we're not too concerned what happens at the beginning and what happens at the end. And also we've got this stopper to deal with. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the zip closed, and we're just going to put the edge of the zipper foot to the edge of the zip. So what we need to do now is we need to do a few stitches forward. So then the prong is next to the feet, and we're sewing by the side of the zip. Back and forward again. So we're going to sew down for 6 centimeters, and then we're going to just do a little back stitch and come off. Okay, so we've sewn this section here. Then what we need to do is we need to then move the puller out of the way, very properly, and then we need to come on where we finished off, and that just gets us past the puller. But this time we're going to open up the zip with our finger, so we're getting as close to those teeth as we possibly can. So where we left off, a few stitches forward and back and forward again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to roll the zip with our finger. All the way to the edge. Okay, and lift up. And then we're going to close the zip back up. So now we're going to go and sew in the other side of the zip. So we need to get the notch at the top. This is the notch at the top, and we're sewing the zip into the bottom. You need to sew the fabric tape of the zip to the fabric. So we lay that down. We make sure that everything else is lined up. And we pin this. So we're doing exactly the same as we did before. So we're pinning, tack and sew. Our needle. Okay. Oops. Put a knot in the end, and then we're just going to sew this. Just do your little hangman to hold it secure. Here, take your pins out for sewing, and always open your zip up for sewing. Okay. Open the zip up. Right down to the bottom. So this time we're working the opposite way round because we still want the bulk of the fabric on the left hand side. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to sew straight away, and we're going to roll the zip all the way down here, all the way to the bottom until we hit the puller. We backstitch, we come off, we roll the zip back up. Too many loose threads here. Roll the zip back up, we start back on, and we continue down. So we're just working the opposite way round. If you put the zip in different to me at the beginning, you may even start like this. Okay, so. So the bulk of the zip is at the left-hand side, the needle is in the left-hand side position, and so is the fabric. Do a few stitches forward and back, and then straight away we start opening up the T. Close to the stopper, or the puller should I say, so we need to give it a back stitch. We need to come off, we need to roll the zip up so the puller is out of the way. And we come back on, few stitches forward and back and forward. And that is our zip in. So it's at this stage that we want to just tidy all our loose ends. Doesn't have to be super neat. Just so we get rid of any frayed little bits. And the tacking stitches also need to come out, so you would get yourself an unpicker and you would lift up and snap those tacking stitches. Much easier than a pair of scissors. And again, this unpicker should come with your machine. The same with the other side, so just snap off and unpick. And then what we need to do is, this is the zip, which is beautiful. What we need to do is we need to close the ends of the zip. So that's 6 centimeters that we've been talking about, which you're never gonna see. We need to now close up. So the vital thing to do is to move your puller to the middle. So the puller's to the middle. The front and the back are together, and what you need to do is you need to get your fabric tape of your zipper, and you need to squash them together. Okay, so you just make a little squash together movement and place a pin there. And at the other side, you also need to squash together, but the zip is open. So you just are aligning the two bits of nylon zipper together and squashing those together. Okay, like that. And then what we're doing is we're going to sew by the side of the zip, yeah, so you can feel the teeth of that zip, and so we're going to sew by the sides for 6 centimeters. If you're not sure of what 6 centimeters is, always measure, but we're coming down the side here for 6 centimeters. Then we're going to flip over and we're going to sew down the side of the bulk here for 6 centimeters. So zipper foot still needs to be on, bulk still needs to be at the left hand side. Okay, so this time we want the zipper foot to be at the right. So we just move this sleigh shade forward and we've got that on the right. Okay, so the bulk of the material is at the left-hand side. The needle is in its right-hand side position, right next to and really close to the bulk of the teeth. We do a few stitches forward and back and forward again. And we just sew in by the side, just here. Then we flip over. We do the same here. Machine's playing up today. Okay, and again, we've sewn by the side of the teeth for 6 centimeters. And what that does is that has actually closed up and it stopped, so the puller stops where you've sewn up. And that's a beautiful zip, concealed, which you can't see. So to finish off, all we're doing now is we are sewing up in a U shape, so the 3 sides that are open. So where we've just sewn these 6 centimeters at either side, we're going to start on there. We're going to take a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance and we're going to sew in a straight line all the way around. What you need to make sure though before you do that is that if you've been playing with the zip, just to make sure it works, always return it back to the middle, otherwise we won't be able to get into the cushion. So we'll just clip all that off where the machine has had a little bit of a nightmare. So we just put our pins in, making sure that everything is together or as best we can. If one is a little bit bigger than the other, don't worry too much unless it's a significant amount. So we're just going to put a few pins in to stop it moving. So the pins are going in horizontal and perpendicular to the needle, Make sure that they are straight rather than a diagonal, because if they are on a diagonal, the machine may not take them, and well, you'll break your needle. You can take them out as you go. I tend to just roll over my pins. Okay, now this time the 2-prong foot, the normal foot, standard foot needs to come back on. So that's in my tray. So I unclip this. Don't know how much thread I've got at the bottom left. So we'll just see. So you need to just keep an eye. If you know that you haven't got a full bobbin, you just need to keep an eye on the sewing, because you can end up just sewing and it's not doing anything. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go. So we're gonna align it with the 1.5 centimetre seam allowance on our metal plate. We're gonna start 1 centimetre down, and we're gonna do a few stitches forward on straight stitch, and then we're gonna roll back. Now the machine sews in a straight line, so you don't need to be hanging on for dear life. It's sewn in a straight line for you. All you're doing is just even and helping. I see people clutching. Okay, now when the sleigh shape of this 2-prong foot, when the edge of that sleigh shape gets to the edge of the fabric, roughly, needle in, lift up, turn round, and that will give you the 1.5. Sleigh shape to the end, one more I think, flip over, 1.5. So you're going to trim everything off, all the loose threads off. Just take these pins out, which I didn't take out earlier. Switch the machine off, and then everything comes through the gap in the zip. Just going to move that out of the way. We've still got pins in. Like this. And fetch everything through, poke out the corners, and when this has a cushion and it's sat on the sofa, don't kind of worry too much about maybe little mistakes that you've made. They all look really, really good. Okay, we're like this, and we zip this up. You're going to spend a little bit more time than me just trimming off these edges. And we have a concealed zipped cushion.